Chapter 71 Template Fusion Degree, 100. Please read on. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 71, Template Fusion, 100%. Please read. Seeing Professor X getting blown off, Wolverine, never one to back down, snarled, "Professor, forget him. Jean's got the Phoenix Force maxed out. We just need to help her take him down, and problem solved." Wolverine's charge was the signal. The X-Men piled on. Cyclops, Storm, Quicksilver, and Shadowcat all went after Sumu. But Sumu only had eyes for Phoenix. She hovered in the air, bristling with power. Raw telekinesis poured off her, superheated energy radiated from her core, and the fiery wings of the Phoenix blazed behind her. Then, Phoenix threw up an impenetrable telekinetic shield around the X-Men, protecting them while they attacked. Wolverine was first to strike. His adamantium claws sliced through the air, a blur of lethal steel aimed straight for Sumu. Sumu, distracted by figuring out how to yank the Phoenix Force out of Jean, snapped back to reality. He watched Wolverine claw at him, staying just outside his reach, and grinned. He formed a sword with 2 fingers and with a flick, weakened the telekinetic shield with a spatial slash. A black and red singularity formed at his fingertips, hurtling toward Wolverine. The singularity ripped through the weakened telekinetic shield and slammed into Wolverine's chest. The repulsive force instantly pulverized his flesh, leaving only the glistening adamantium skeleton to hold him together. He blasted backward, dozens of times faster than he'd come, carving a 100-meter-long trench through the military base. Sumu used his 6 eyes to scan the base, surprised to find the general still breathing. He'd been hoping to use Wolverine's body to flatten the general, but someone had yanked him out of the way just in time. It was Quicksilver, blurring with speed. Boom! Storm took to the air, unleashing a maelstrom of lightning and wind. Sumu ignored it, focusing on his rapidly decaying body. The rate of annihilation was accelerating, far worse than it had been at the White House. But his reversal technique was keeping pace. The Level 3 technique and the Phoenix Force's destructive power were colliding and canceling each other out, slowing the decay. Sumu calculated he had maybe 10 minutes if Phoenix kept up this assault. Seriously scary. He stepped forward, bending space with the gravity of Cang, and instantly appeared inside the military base. The general was right in front of him. Before Quicksilver could react, a wave of repulsive force erupted, centered on Sumu, and ripped through the base. Everything disintegrated. Even with Phoenix's telekinetic shield, the general was shredded by the spatial slashes and repulsive force. As the wave subsided, Sumu whirled around to dodge. Quicksilver, also shielded, had dodged the worst of the blast and was coming back, wielding a weird energy weapon. Sumu's energy vision detected a faint trace of the Phoenix Force in it, and he instinctively dodged. Good thing he did. The weapon, like a laser sword, actually broke down matter on contact. Combined with its energy vibrations, it could bypass his limitless and even his energy absorption. It had to be Reed Richards' doing. This was just like his atom displacer, only smaller. He'd probably used fragments of the Phoenix Force to create weapons that could break down matter. Quicksilver managed to nick Sumu's cheek with the energy sword. Bright red blood welled up, only to be instantly repaired by the reversal technique. In a high-tech lab, the big boss, Ivan Vanko, and Reed Richards were glued to satellite feeds. They were a mess. They hadn't slept in days, pouring every ounce of energy into figuring out how to fight the White Devil. After relentless research, they'd developed 2 weapons that could actually hurt him. One was the latest Sentinel robot, but the White Devil had trashed it in seconds, not even taking a scratch. Seeing the energy lightsaber draw blood, they practically jumped out of their seats. The White Devil was finally bleeding. Their research was catching up with the White Devil's insane growth. They finally had a chance. Emboldened by drawing blood, Quicksilver's confidence soared. With his speed and the energy lightsaber, plus backup, he could take down the White Devil. He charged again, time slowing to a crawl around him. He was the only thing moving. He grinned, ready to plunge the lightsaber into the White Devil's brain. But as he closed in, he realized those cold azure eyes were locked on him, tracking his every move. He could keep up with his speed. Then, the White Devil vanished, reappearing directly in front of him. He tried to dodge, but found himself frozen, trapped. His speed was gone. "You seemed pretty sure of yourself," that the White Devil's voice whispered in his ear. He tried to speak, but a purple orb shattered his telekinetic shield, then his head, and kept going, obliterating everything in its path, including the general he'd saved, until it vanished into the distance. 2 infinity stones floated out of the pocket dimension, circling Sumu, and he began to absorb a massive influx of energy. Energy point +1, dot, energy point +1, dot, energy point +1, dot. A flood of energy surged into Sumu, and he dumped it all into the template fusion. Suddenly, a dazzling golden light erupted from the character panel. Template fusion degree, 100%, using gravity to pull the energy lightsaber to him, Sumu flashed a bright smile at the X-Men. Round 2 was about to begin. Please read it again. Chapter 72 New Character Template. Please read on. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 72 New Character Template. With the character template fusion at 100%, Sumu felt completely transformed. Energy surged through him, coursing through every limb and bone, strengthening his body from the inside out. He now fully commanded Gojo Satoru's powers. Before, he'd relied on the system for skills beyond energy absorption. Now, that energy had seamlessly integrated every ability into his being. Even if the system vanished, it wouldn't faze him. The zone state, once triggered only by Black Flash, was now his default, effortless state. Even better, advanced techniques for spell power manipulation flooded his mind: spellbinding, enchantment, the works. Seeing the X-Men's grief and rage over Quicksilver's death, Sumu's grin widened. He formed a hand sign, index finger wrapped around his middle. Domain expansion, infinite void, PS, infinite void, no lower limit within. The entire military base, and the surrounding area, were pulled into the infinite void. Everyone within its reach, except Sumu, froze in place. Forced into endless repetition of perception and processing simply to exist, their minds were flooded with incomprehensible data, trapping them in a state of awareness without action. To Sumu's surprise, both Phoenix and Professor X. Sumu wasn't surprised by Phoenix and Professor X's presence, but what could they even do? Sumu vanished, reappearing next to Cyclops. Professor X, instantly grasping his intent, telepathed to Phoenix, "Jean, stop him. He's going after Scott." Phoenix reacted instantly, her powerful matter disintegration ability engulfing Sumu, tearing at his form. But the reversal technique simply negated it. A power that could obliterate Apocalypse couldn't even scratch Sumu. Then, telekinesis slammed into Sumu, a tangible force battering against his limitless spell, creating ripples in the void, yet still failing to stop him. Sumu flicked a finger at the center of Cyclops's forehead. Raw power surged into Cyclops, his body erupting in a blinding light before exploding into dust. No, seeing her lover destroyed, Phoenix lost control. Crimson veins spread across her skin as she unleashed the full power of the Phoenix Force. She ignited in scorching flames, spreading fiery wings like a true phoenix. Matter disintegration intensified, visibly dissolving Sumu's palms. His fingertips were reduced to nothing in seconds, but he showed no fear. His joy was absolute. He said calmly, "My recovery, my reversal technique, it amplifies negative energy into positive, healing my body." Drawing on the revealed techniques in his mind, Sumu methodically explained his abilities. He had just informed Professor Fixed. He continued. And the ultimate incantation, domain expansion, creates a unique realm. Any move within guarantees a hit. Buzz. Professor. Jean, stop him now. He's somehow amplifying his power. Hearing Professor. Like this. With a flick of his fingers, a red line appeared on Professor X's neck, his body instantly shattered under the spatial slash. The spatial slash, previously limited by distance, became a terrifying, wide-range attack amplified by his domain expansion. No. Witnessing Professor X's demise, Phoenix's power intensified further, threatening to disintegrate everything around her. But her attacks were futile. Now that the technique was revealed, Su-Mu's regeneration far outpaced her matter disintegration. With a wave of Su-Mu's hand, one X-Man after another fell, Iceman, Shadowcat, Storm. They were powerless, trapped by the infinite void, fully aware of their fate, unable to act. Leaving a handful of potentially useful X-Men alive, Su-Mu turned a contemptuous gaze upon the Phoenix. He sneered. A lucky fool who stumbled upon an ancient power, then couldn't control it, causing endless tragedy. It's pathetic. No, what do you know? You bastard, I'll kill you. Su-Mu vanished, instantly appearing before the Phoenix. Fueled by rage at his taunts, the Phoenix's matter disintegration intensified again, even more so because of his proximity. Su-Mu's body was constantly collapsing and regenerating. However, Su-Mu, with his 6 eyes, knew that while the collapse and regeneration appeared equal, the regeneration was far faster. He reached out, pressing his hand against her face, and grinned. It's a shame you're just a fragment. Purple lightning erupted from Su-Mu's palm, engulfing the Phoenix and instantly obliterating her. Jean Grey, the most perfect host of the Phoenix Force, was gone, leaving only the raw Phoenix Force drifting in the air. But as Su-Mu reached to claim this shard of the Phoenix Force, it vanished, leaping across dimensions, beyond his perception. Su-Mu shook his head in slight disappointment. The Phoenix Force wouldn't be that easy, but he quickly recovered. It was just a fragment. Once his portal reached the level to traverse parallel universes, he'd have plenty of chances to study it. With the energy coursing through him, Su-Mu activated the Mind Stone, controlling the remaining X-Men, then eagerly opened his system panel, anticipating the changes. Template fusion, 100%. You have completely mastered all the abilities of Gojo Satoru. You have obtained the character template, Accelerator. You have obtained the skill, Vector Manipulation LV1. Chapter 73 Vector Operations. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Vector Manipulation LV1, 1/100 tweak the direction of almost any vector to generate artificial axes, covering force, speed, acceleration, displacement, impulse, momentum, electric field, magnetic field, and more. Getting this template early makes it easier to unlock, and the energy transfer within Su-Mu's body resulted in an instant 1% fusion rate, unlocking new skills. Seeing the new character template and skills, Su-Mu was stoked. While he wasn't suddenly capable of obliterating entire worlds, Accelerator was still a powerhouse. P.S. Accelerator, normal, his superpower boils down to vector manipulation. He can control all vectors, reflecting any force he understands. If he grasped the power of gods, he could even kill them. Plus, he has the potential for advancement, the wings of the unknown. These wings have 4 forms, black, white, colorless, and platinum, each stronger than the last. The unknown wings boost all of Accelerator's abilities, greatly increasing his overall strength. The white wings alone surpass most saints. And the unknown wings aren't even his final form. He eventually reaches the Abyss state, crossing the Abyss and linking with the collective consciousness of Q-Demon and the Misaka network, gaining control of the third tree. In this Abyss state, he can unleash a gun capable of erasing even a demon's immortality. Keep in mind, demon gods are godlike entities in this forbidden world, omnipotent and immortal. Accelerator can compete with them in the Abyss state, which demonstrates his immense power. That's why Accelerator is way stronger than Gojo Satoru, making his template fusion much harder to increase, but Su-Mu wasn't worried. He had the Infinity Stones. His only limitation wasn't energy, but how quickly he could absorb it. By continuing to absorb the Infinity Stone's energy, he'd unlock 100% of Accelerator's character template sooner or later. He was already hyped for the next character template. He pulled out a symbiote from his pocket dimension, its consciousness wiped clean, and controlled it to cover his body like clothing. This symbiote, specially modified by Sumu, lacked the usual weaknesses to fire and sound waves, and granted the host enhanced physical fitness and regeneration. An average person bonded with this symbiote would become a Spider-Man-level powerhouse instantly. But even though the symbiote was incredibly strong compared to normal folks, it was easily wiped out by Phoenix Girl's matter-decomposing abilities in their battle. The gap between it and Sumu was like the gap between it and a regular person, complete and utter domination. Thinking about Phoenix Girl, Sumu felt a twinge of regret. The Phoenix Force in this universe was clearly weaker, but even a sliver of it could do so much. It made him even more curious about the full potential of the Phoenix Force. He also wondered where this shard of the Phoenix Force would go and if other Phoenix Girls in alternate universes would absorb it. Mr. Fantastic, the Big Boss, and Ivan Vanko watched the surveillance satellite feeds in silence. Colonel Stryker suddenly slammed his fist on the table, knocking over ornaments that scattered across the floor. He couldn't understand why the Sentinel robots and the X-Men failed to kill the White Devil when they worked together. He couldn't fathom how the White Devil's strength had increased so rapidly. When he was first discovered, he couldn't even absorb the kinetic energy of a regular person's punch. Now, he could defeat 200 Sentinel robots and the X-Men. This rate of growth was terrifying. Nothing like this had ever been seen since the discovery of mutants. He suppressed his anger and asked the three doctors behind him, "Do you have any other ways to kill the White Devil?" They remained silent. The White Devil's growth had outstripped their research. During the siege, the previous White Devil would have been easily killed by Phoenix Girl. Now, his strength had improved exponentially. Even Phoenix Girl, wielding a fragment of the Phoenix Force, couldn't touch him and was easily defeated. Finally, Mr. Fantastic spoke up. After a moment's hesitation, he shared his plan. "I have one last resort, but it comes with huge risks. I'd rather not use it if I can avoid it." Stryker's hopes lifted, and even the Big Boss and Ivan Vanko were intrigued. During their collaboration, they realized Mr. Fantastic was the smartest of them all. The Sentinel and the energy lightsaber that could cut through the White Devil's defenses had already exhausted his resources. They didn't expect him to have anything left up his sleeve. Seeing all eyes on him, Mr. Fantastic revealed his plan. "I've been researching a device to travel to parallel universes and summon my counterparts. If I work together with a version of me, we could figure out a way to counteract the White Devil's abilities faster than he can improve his strength, and maybe kill him. However, this device is almost impossible to control, and the summoned version of me is completely random. He could be a lawful Reed like me, or a crazy one." Colonel Stryker was silent. If it worked, they might kill the White Devil. But if it failed and summoned a crazy Mr. Fantastic, the situation would be much worse. Then, the Big Boss suggested a different approach. "Why not save Mr. Fantastic's plan for last? Let's try mine first." "Your plan?" "Gamma rays created me, and they also created the Hulk, so I've always had a plan. That's to combine the energy of cosmic rays and gamma rays to create a giant even stronger than the Hulk. I call it the Red Giant Project. If you help me combine the Red Hulk Project with the Sentinel Project, and use multiple arc reactors to power Red Hulk with mutant abilities, plus use mutant suppression devices, space disruption devices, and Mr. Fantastic's new matter-decomposing lightsaber, we can create a monster that can go toe-to-toe with the White Devil. Since we're the ones creating it, we'll be able to control it. I believe the Red Hulk we've created will beat the White Devil, no matter how quickly he grows." Colonel Stryker's face brightened, but before he could agree, Ivan Vanko quietly interjected, "Have you forgotten that the White Devil's growth rate is still accelerating?" Chapter 74 Reversal Technique Level 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Ivan Vank's warning, Mr. Fantastic and the others went silent, their renewed confidence shot. But they were still willing to take a shot. Anything was better than accidentally summoning alternate versions of Mr. Fantastic. Time to make Red Hulk. Using the Mind Stone to control the remaining X-Men, Sumu opened a portal with a flick of his finger and led everyone back to New York, specifically to the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. The school, built on the grounds of an old castle, was bathed in the golden light of noon when they arrived. Young students milled about, seemingly unaware of the X-Men's defeat at the hands of the White Devil. Most didn't know their teammates were either dead or mind-controlled slaves. Looking at the cheerful campus, Sumu couldn't help but think of Professor X. He hated to shatter the peace here. Hold on a sec. Something struck Sumu as odd. Was he the bad guy in this scenario? He shook his head. No, he wasn't a villain. He was a savior, guiding mutants to the right path. You're the White Devil. Suddenly, a girl with streaks of white in her hair stared at him in disbelief. A wave of understanding washed over her face, quickly followed by sorrow. Where's the professor? What have you done with Jean? Where are they? Hank? Logan? Why are you behind the White Devil? Weren't you supposed to be taking him down? So, not everyone was in the dark about the X-Men's mission. At least Rogue wasn't. Hearing Rogue's shout, several figures rushed from the building to her side. Seeing the scene before them, their faces fell. They knew what the X-Men had done. Sunspot, always quick to anger, ignited his body in flames and charged at Sumu, yelling. Where's the professor? What did you do to Hank and the others? He knew immediately that something was wrong. Hank and the others were being controlled. As Sunspot rushed him, Sumu didn't bother with unlimited spell. He simply walked towards the flames. When he was about 5 meters away, he teleported in front of Sunspot and pinched his lava-like head. He was a peaceful guy. He didn't want to hurt any of the students at Xavier's. But you're kind of forcing my hand here, Sumu said sadly. He sighed, and black and red lightning crackled in his palm. He crushed Sunspot's head with terrifying force. Scalding brains and blood were repelled by an unseen field. Sunspot's cooling corpse bounced backward, thanks to unlimited spell. To the angry cries of Rogue and the others, yellow gems flared around Sumu, illuminating the entire school. The panic on the faces of Rogue and the others vanished, replaced by joy. Rogue ran up to Sumu, beaming. Professor Sumu, you beat Professor X and you're back. Sumu ruffled her hair and said with a smile, of course. We took care of Professor X. Awesome. Rogue said, her smile bright. At that moment, the Sudoan Bureau gained serious power. Looking at the mutants gazing at him with longing, the director felt pretty darn good. Only 3 X-Men were still alive, Beast, Mystique, and Wolverine. They each had a purpose for Sumu. Beast's research skills weren't quite on Tony Stark's level, but they were still impressive. As a tech guy for the Ark, he was definitely overkill. Then there was Wolverine. The adamantium in his bones was fused with his healing factor, making it a renewable source. If his bones were harvested, the adamantium could be a resource that would keep on giving. Sumu thought that he was way too nice. Not only had he let his enemies live, he had given them promising new careers. Finally, there was Mystique. Her shape-shifting ability was Sumu's favorite, not just for fun, of course. Mystique's ability made her a natural spy. She'd be a key player for Sumu down the line. After sending Beast to the Ark and dismissing Wolverine, Sumu took Mystique to a new seaside villa he'd bought. Ordering a Hollywood actress to coach Mystique, Sumu began honing her espionage skills. He didn't start with vector manipulation, but with reversal technique. His constant battles against Phoenix Girl's matter decomposition ability had given him tons of experience with reversal technique, and he was on the verge of leveling up. Judging from the timeline, Jane Foster was about to deliver the takeout. He didn't want to miss the delivery. After all, even if he offed Jane Foster, the reality gem wouldn't solidify. Enjoying the services of Hollywood women and Mystique's constant transformations, Sumu used energy to hurt them and then used reversal technique to heal them. The system notifications kept chiming in his ears. Energy points +1. Reversal technique experience +1. Reversal technique experience +1. Reversal technique experience +1. Finally, the system rang with a different message. Reversal technique experience +1. Congratulations, your skill reversal technique has leveled up. Reversal technique LV4, January 5000 transforms negative energy of cursed power into positive energy, creates strong healing effect, and reverts things to their original state. Can be used on people and inanimate objects. Information flooded his mind. After a shudder, Sumu had completely processed it. The level 4 reversal technique was a huge leap forward. Not only was the healing effect boosted, but its nature had changed. The old version was just treatment. This new version was optimization. It could revert matter to its original state. That meant he could use it on inanimate objects, and now that it was level 4, Sumu had reached peak control over his own body. He could control his age at will, switching between childhood and old age. Grinning, Sumu digested the info. The reversal technique was finally ready to go. Now all he needed was Jane Foster and that takeout. To be continued. Chapter 75 Portal LV3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. While Sumu was kicking back at his Seaview villa with some Hollywood starlets and mystique, the battlefield, once a desolate expanse of sand, drew a few new players. Leading the pack was a figure with a stern face, a distinctive helmet, and the power to levitate metallic objects around him. This was Magneto, one of the most powerful mutants alive and the long-sought leader of the Brotherhood of Mutants. Magneto surveyed the scene, a landscape ravaged as if by multiple nuclear blasts, his expression a complex mix of emotions. He'd initially come to provide backup, anticipating a showdown between Professor X and the X-Men, and the mysterious White Devil. But the carnage before him told a different story. Judging by the scattered remains, the X-Men had been utterly crushed. This wasn't a siege, it was a straight-up massacre. The White Devil had unleashed hell on the Sentinels, the X-Men, everyone. From the looks of it, the Sentinels and most of the X-Men never stood a chance. Maybe Jean Grey, wielding the full Phoenix Force, could have given the White Devil a run for his money, but even she had fallen before his thunderous power. This White Devil was stronger than he'd imagined. Even Jean, fully embracing the Phoenix, couldn't take him down. The conclusion was undeniable. Most of the X-Men were dead, including his old friend, Professor X. That's what stirred such turmoil within him. He and Charles had been friends for decades, from joining forces to prevent the Black King from starting a nuclear war to their later falling out, a love-hate relationship that saw them constantly separating and reuniting. But never truly wishing the other dead, they were practically family. Now, Charles was gone, taken down while trying to suppress their fellow mutants. If Charles had died any other way, Magneto would have sought vengeance without hesitation. But Charles died hunting down other mutants, leaving Magneto conflicted and unsure. Still, if someone else had killed Charles, even another mutant, Magneto likely would have retaliated. He'd done it before, killing the Black Emperor after he murdered his mother, but why the White Devil? The White Devil's power was clearly on a whole other level compared to other mutants. He wasn't even playing the same game. If they sought revenge on the White Devil for Charles's death, the Brotherhood of Mutants would likely suffer the same fate as the X-Men. I'm sorry, Charles, Magneto thought, I can't risk the entire Brotherhood for you. He had to consider the others in his group. Meanwhile, Sumu was enjoying a period of relative calm, steadily increasing his power. His body had fully recovered, and he reabsorbed the Infinity Stone's energy. This surge significantly boosted the accelerator template. It now stood at template fusion degree, 8%. Based on accelerator's known abilities, Sumu believed that reaching 10% fusion would unlock new skills. One day, as Sumu was practicing his skills in the open-air pool of his Seaview villa, the system notifications kept rolling in. Energy point +1, 6 eyes experience +1, portal experience +1, energy absorption experience +1. After a while, a different prompt appeared. Portal experience +1. Congratulations. Your skill portal has been upgraded. Portal LV3, 1/1000 consume magic power to open a portal to any area of the current latitude/universe. Magic power can be replaced by energy. It was easier to gain experience with lower-level skills, and the experience needed for upgrades was lower too. Even with Sumu focusing on core skills like energy absorption, the LV2 portal was the first to level up. Upon reaching level 3, a torrent of information flooded Sumu's mind, which he instantly absorbed. Level 3 skill information no longer strained him. After completely processing the memories, Sumu fully understood the new capabilities of the LV3 portal. no more gestures were needed, he could open portals with just a thought, even multiple portals at once. The maximum size of the portals had also increased dramatically. Most importantly, he could now travel to any area of the current universe or any latitude without restriction. This sparked his interest in the Guardians of the Galaxy. Judging by the timeline, Star-Lord should be close to obtaining the Power Stone. Once Jane Foster's gem delivery arrived and the Power Stone was in hand, Sumu would have 4 Infinity Stones. Only the Time Stone and Soul Stone would remain before he could collect them all and snap his fingers. As Sumu pondered how to acquire the Time Stone from the Ancient One and the Soul Stone, which required the sacrifice of a loved one, his 6 eyes caught something. A grin spread across Sumu's face as he calmly sipped his expensive red wine and waited. Soon enough, several figures approached his beach villa and rang the doorbell. It seemed Hydra had learned from their previous mistake. Arriving with a newfound level of respect, he instructed Tony Stark's AI, Monday, to open the door. Several agents in leather shoes entered and approached the outdoor pool. Leading them was Hydra agent Hitwill, whom Sumu had previously met at the site of Thor's hammer landing. He was now acting as Hydra's representative. Reaching Sumu, Hitwill said respectfully, "Mr. Sumu, we're presenting you with the obelisk you requested on behalf of Hydra. We hope you'll refrain from interfering with our plans moving forward. Of course, if our plan succeeds, we'll offer you an additional reward." As the White Devil's power grew, Hydra no longer dared to ask for his help, nor did they dare to reclaim the Tesseract. At this point, they would be happy if the White Devil just stayed out of their way. However, they still hoped the obelisk would kill the White Devil, removing the biggest obstacle to Hydra's world domination, but they didn't have much hope. They doubted the obelisk could truly defeat someone as powerful as the White Devil. Sumu took the obelisk and examined it closely. The moment he touched it, a strange energy tried to invade his body, but it was instantly absorbed by his LV4 energy. Although the obelisk posed no threat to him, it was still worth studying, or at least using for some fun. After a moment, Sumu focused on Hitwill. Despite his attempts to remain calm, the fear in his eyes was undeniable. Sumu grinned and chuckled, "Don't worry, I won't kill you for knocking on the door this time." Just as Hitwill breathed a sigh of relief, the agents beside him suddenly exploded into a bloody mist, splattering him with gore and staining his vision red. Then, he heard the White Devil whisper, "Unfortunately, they didn't knock." Chapter 76 The Second Express Delivery Arrives. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Even after leaving the White Devil's villa and getting back to the carrier, Hitwill was still shaken. He was a top agent, mentally tough, but the encounter left him feeling powerless. He never wanted to repeat it. He knocked on Alexander Pierce's office door, and after getting the go-ahead, walked in. On the way back, he'd filled Pierce in on everything that happened. Now, seeing Pierce, he immediately asked, puzzled, "Sir, will the White Devil actually stick to the deal and not mess with our plan?" Pierce turned from the window, facing his most reliable subordinate since Crossbone's death. Looking a bit worn, he said, almost wearily, "Even if he doesn't, what can we do? Giving him the obelisk was just a stall tactic. My sources tell me the military's cooking up something new against the White Devil. We just need to keep him happy until that's ready to go. But the military's plans against him have never worked." Hitwill blurted out. Pierce paused. "Our focus is still Project Insight. Once it's online, Hydra will rule the world. With that kind of power, we'll find a way to take down the White Devil, and I can't wait to see the look on Nick Fury's face. Imagine him finding out S.H.I.E.L.D. is really Snake S.H.I.E.L.D. The worry lines from the White Devil encounter finally eased, replaced by a satisfied smile. Seeing this, Hitwill said with calculated respect, "Your plan is sure to succeed." "Hail Hydra!" Pierce grinned back. "Hail Hydra!" Outside the door, the 2 former Hydra agents, now pretending to be loyal S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, overheard the exchange and exchanged knowing smiles, looking forward to what was to come. After Hitwill left, Sumu summoned his clothes, got dressed, and gently stomped his feet. With precise energy control through the 6 eyes, any lingering energy traces vanished, leaving no trace of blood. The room was spotless again. He used the Mind Stone to suit the Hollywood actresses, and then went back to training, but he barely got started when the 6 eyes picked up 2 figures hurtling toward him again. This time, unlike the Hydra agent's arrival, Sumu was surprised and pleased. His delivery was here. With a thought, a portal instantly opened in front of him. It was so fast that Thor, in mid-flight, couldn't react and slammed right into it. Seeing Sumu on the other side, his face went white. The sudden teleportation threw him off balance. He couldn't recall Mjolnir and was about to plow into Sumu. Even knowing Sumu was strong, he doubted he could withstand a direct hit from Mjolnir. The hammer was blessed by Odin himself. You needed power rivaling, maybe surpassing, Odin to take it head-on, he yelled, Sumu, move, but Sumu didn't budge. His eyes were locked on Jane Foster, clutched in Thor's arms, the 6 eyes revealed raging red energy swirling through her. Energy hotter than the sun, more massive than the Milky Way. A sudden burst would obliterate the galaxy. Yet, this alien energy was intertwined with Jane, a mortal, in a strange, liquid state. Instead of instant death, it was slowly draining her life. It was the reality stone, the package Sumu had been waiting for. P.S. The red one is the reality stone. As the hammer came down, Sumu extended a finger and lightly tapped it, vector manipulation. The hammer's force instantly reversed, rocketing back toward Thor, amplified, fueled by excitement. Sumu reflexively unleashed a repelling force, accelerating the hammer's return. Boom! Thunder cracked as Mjolnir slammed into Thor's chest, sending him flying. The impact launched him out of the villa and into the sea, creating a massive wave. Ignoring the unconscious Thor, Sumu grabbed Jane's hand, cast a reversal spell, and used the 6 eyes to confirm the reality stone's response. It was working. The level 4 reversal spell could restore the reality stone to a solid state. Gripping Jane's hand, he said warmly, Miss Jane, don't worry. I'm going to fix this. Jane pointed past him at the wave about to engulf the villa. Before she could speak, Sumu, still holding her hand and casting the spell, extended his other hand behind him. A powerful repelling force burst forth, instantly flattening the wave. Then, focusing his gravity control, he locked onto Thor hundreds of feet below the surface and hauled him in. Under immense gravity, Thor shot toward him, Mjolnir included, faster than he could fly it himself. The hammer strike had knocked him senseless. It took a moment to clear his head. Seeing Sumu, he remembered everything and looked at him in disbelief. Sumu, you stopped Mjolnir with just one finger. As far as Thor knew, only Odin could resist Mjolnir head-on, let alone with a single finger. To resist Mjolnir meant you could wield it, claiming the power of Thor. He felt cheated, because he was about to get the reality stone. Sumu smiled brightly. It's just a hammer. Why so surprised? But your girlfriend's really something. Oh, I mean, the reality stone inside her is special. I can help her remove it, so you can relax and leave her with me. Knowing Jane was about to be saved, Thor felt less relief than he expected, and a creeping feeling that he was being played. P.S. Some people say that Colonel Stryker is still alive because the protagonist is too saintly, but that's not true. Colonel Stryker knows the horror of mutants, so he hides very well. Even S.H.I.E.L.D. can't find his location, but don't worry, in the next Red Giant incident, he will be dead soon. Please keep reading. Chapter 77 The Cowardly Mortals of Midgard. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Jane was infected by ether particles in an abandoned warehouse, and they were rapidly killing her. If we didn't remove them, she wouldn't last long. We came because you told us Jane sought you out when she first got sick. Turns out, you actually can heal her. That even though he felt tricked, Thor still looked at Sumu gratefully. With precise energy manipulation, Sumu began separating the ether particles from Jane Foster. As if sensing Sumu's actions, the ether particles instinctively created energy bursts and attacked him, but without anyone controlling it. It was just a reflexive defense, barely affecting Sumu, who easily dealt with it. Keeping one hand on Jane Foster, Sumu smiled at Thor. You should have come to me sooner. Jane's case is unique. The ether is fused with her. Even Odin would struggle to remove it. Maybe only dark elves with ether expertise could. Of course, I can too, and even repair the damage it's done, bringing her back to normal and preventing her from getting cancer. Cancer? Jane's going to get cancer?" Thor asked, alarmed. Sumu nodded and explained, "Ether particles are highly radioactive, but honestly, you should be more worried about Asgard. The appearance of the ether means the 9 realms will converge, and the Dark Elves will awaken, their first act. Attacking their old enemy, Asgard. With Odin aging and you gone, Asgard has no one who can go toe-to-toe with the cursed warriors. Asgard's in serious trouble." Thor's face went pale. He knew the Dark Elves' grudge against Asgard and realized Sumu was probably right, so he called out, "Heimdall, get me back now." But despite repeated calls, Heimdall didn't respond. A strong sense of dread washed over Thor. Sumu was right. Something must be wrong with Heimdall, or he'd have answered. Damn it! How do I get back without the Bifrost? Thor was frantic. If Asgard was attacked while he was away, he'd never forgive himself. Just as he was paralyzed with worry, Sumu put a hand on his shoulder, the force nearly knocking him off his feet, the same way he used to mess with Loki. Now he was on the receiving end. Sumu's voice came from beside him, "I can get you back to Asgard, and I can help you fight off the Dark Elves, but after it's all said and done, you're handing over the casket of ancient winters, the eternal flame, and the infinity gauntlet. That's my fee." Overjoyed, Thor immediately agreed, "Deal. As long as you help defend Asgard, you can have them." Hearing Thor's agreement, Sumu grinned. Odin wasn't dead yet. Though old and weakened, Odin still had power. Asgardians grow stronger with age, meaning Odin was at his peak right before death. He couldn't just use his power freely anymore because his body was failing, but if he unleashed it all, he'd be unstoppable. Even the Ancient One would struggle. So, Sumu preferred a transaction to outright theft when dealing with Asgard. Thor watched Sumu with suspicion, wondering how he'd get him back. Then, Sumu tapped the air in front of him, and a portal sparking with energy formed. Thor was stunned. He recognized it as the same portal he'd seen earlier, and the other side was the Bifrost. This method of transport could cover incredible distances, and it was faster and easier than the Bifrost. Asterisk used the screen in the movie to open the portal to Asgard. Unlike the low-level portals, the LV3 portal does not require Sumu to go there, and you can open the portal anywhere in the screen. According to his guess, the LV4 portal will not require a screen. You only need to know your own needs to open the portal to the target location. He only needs to wait until then. He can easily find Stryker's whereabouts, and then crush this overestimating insect to death. Stepping through the portal, Sumu pulled Jane Foster with him, transporting them back to Asgard. Asgard was engulfed in war. Dark Elves and prisoners battled against Asgardian warriors. Heimdall was besieged by Dark Elves, struggling to fend them off and unable to answer Thor's call. When the portal opened, everyone stopped to stare, wondering if the newcomers were friend or foe. First, Sumu and Jane Foster walked out, silencing the battlefield. They'd never seen anyone like them in the 9 realms, but when Thor followed, the Asgardian warriors roared, "Thor! Thor! Thor!" In contrast, the Dark Elves panicked. Thor had fought across the 9 realms for centuries. His name was known everywhere. His return shifted the balance, giving Asgard a powerful ally. A massive Dark Elf stepped forward from the ranks and charged at Thor. P.S. Cursed warrior, Thor met his challenge head-on, but the two hadn't even exchanged a single blow before the cursed warrior sent Thor flying. The mighty god was at a disadvantage. After sending Thor sprawling, the cursed warrior spat at Sumu and the others, making a throat-slitting gesture. He yelled, "Thor and a couple of weak Midgardians are nothing." The Dark Elves cheered, "Cursed warrior! Cursed warrior! Cursed warrior!" Sumu smiled gently at the cursed warrior, as terrifying red and black lightning surged from his free hand. Please read it again. Chapter 78 Instant Kill Curse Warrior, the Messenger of Death on the Battlefield. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The spell inverted the spatial folds of Cang, instantly teleporting Sumu and Jane Foster across the distance to stand before the cursed warrior. A swirling black-red vortex materialized in Sumu's palm, and he slammed it towards the warrior's face. Despite seeing them as mere Midgardian weaklings, the cursed warrior tensed as Sumu and Jane emerged from the portal. He might not have known exactly what they could do, but he sensed they were anything but ordinary. When Sumu vanished and reappeared directly in front of him, the warrior reacted immediately, bracing himself with crossed arms. He felt power surging within him, surpassing even Thor's, and he was confident he could withstand any blow from these Midgardians. They couldn't be stronger than the god of thunder, right? But as his arm met the black-red vortex, his expression morphed into sheer terror. Though the cursed warrior was stronger than even a Hulk at peak rage, the instant his arm brushed against the vortex, it shattered, the bone and muscle pulverized by the unimaginable force. Even after obliterating his arm, the singularity lost minimal speed, continuing its trajectory towards his head. Danger! 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 The warrior desperately twisted his head, trying to evade the attack, but even in his attempt, the edge of the vortex grazed his face, instantly disintegrating the right side of his face into dust. Fortunately, the blast hurled him backward, sending him and the singularity hurtling off the rainbow bridge and into the water below, far from the terrifying Midgardian. Boom! The massive impact drew everyone's attention. Asgardian and Dark Elf soldiers alike froze, turning to stare at the white-haired figure on the rainbow bridge. They were stunned, disbelieving, some even pinching themselves, questioning if it was all a nightmare. Were these really the weak, primitive Midgardians they thought they knew? How could someone this powerful possibly exist among them? Ah, thought Jane Foster, realizing she hadn't been separated from Sumu during his Tsang teleportation spell to extract the reality stone, suddenly understood what had just happened. Blood from the cursed warrior swirled around them. A mortal witnessing such a scene could only scream. Sumu, annoyed, used his powers to mute her vocal cords, then glanced to see the cursed warrior emerging from the water, already trying to escape. Seeing his quarry several kilometers away, a predatory grin spread across Sumu's face. He extended his hand, focusing a devastating gravity on the fleeing warrior. That single blow had revealed the power gap between them. The cursed warrior had almost been killed in one shot. No. He needed to warn Malekith immediately and initiate an immediate retreat. With a Midgardian this powerful assisting them, even with Odin weakened, their plan was doomed. He could cover hundreds of meters in a single bound, reaching Malekith in seconds to deliver the warning. The Dark Elves couldn't fall on his watch. But as he burst from the water, he suddenly felt himself being yanked backward with immense force. Turning, his face contorted in despair, the white-haired Midgardian had extended his hand, and a wave of gravity emanating from his palm was pulling him back. Even as his fingers tore through the ground, leaving deep gouges in the rainbow bridge's surface, he couldn't stop his retreat. As the gravity intensified, he could no longer resist and was dragged back into the path of a fresh black-red vortex forming in the Midgardian's hand. There was no escape this time. He could only watch as the vortex hurtled toward him, resigned to his fate. Boom! The force instantly crushed the warrior's body and continued its path outward. Under Sumu's precision control, the vortex decimated the Dark Elves one after another before plunging into the sea and disappearing into the void beyond Asgard. Thor watched in shock as Sumu obliterated the cursed warrior. In the short time since they last met, Sumu's strength had increased exponentially. He remembered Sumu being powerful, but not this powerful. The other Dark Elves and Asgardian warriors were stunned. They had first-hand experience of the cursed warrior's might. He was stronger than even Thor. Yet, this seemingly invincible warrior had been destroyed instantly by a Midgardian, his body utterly annihilated. Ignoring the remaining enemies, Sumu turned to Thor, who had just climbed up. "Get up here," that he grabbed Jane and stepped back into the fray. The situation in Asgard was different than he had anticipated. The Dark Elves seemed to have more than one cursed warrior. He could see 5 of them within range. But Sumu wasn't surprised. He knew this universe was simply a parallel one, very similar to the movie version. Given the complexity of the Marvel universe, anything was possible. Since his Tsang technique was level 4, teleportation was no longer a miracle but a real spatial overlap. So, with Sumu's protection, Jane Foster could withstand the space jumps. Sumu teleported across the battlefield like a ghost, weaving in long-range Cang teleports with rapid close-range movements. Wherever he appeared, all dark elves within a 5-meter radius were killed by invisible space slashes. All eyes were on Sumu. As the dark elves witnessed this horrific scene, their fear became overwhelming. They cried out in despair. "He's a devil, a harbinger of death. We can't defeat him. Run! Run for your lives, or we're all dead." P.S. Asgard, with the rainbow bridge in the middle. Please read on. Chapter 79 Malekith. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Dark Elves panicked, ditching their fight and scattering in every direction, but Sumu was way too fast. They couldn't outrun the Grim Reaper. He blazed through them, ending their lives in droves and sending them straight to hell. Thor, still hammering his way along the rainbow bridge, finally caught up. He stared in disbelief. What Asgard struggled with, Sumu handled with ease. He started to thank Sumu, but Sumu cut him off. Freeze! Suddenly, everything shifted, intense gravity warped the space around them, folding it in on itself. When Thor could see straight, he was no longer on the rainbow bridge. He was in a familiar, ornate room, watching another cursed warrior strangle his mother. Her face was red, and she was gasping for air. "Mother!" Thor charged, swinging Mjolnir, but the cursed warrior swatted it aside like it was nothing. Thor, following through with a punch, was also slammed into the wall by another cursed warrior. "No way!" Seeing his precious hammer dismissed so easily, Thor froze, stunned. Twice in one day his hammer had been blocked head-on. That hadn't happened in his 5,000 years. When Sumu and the others appeared, Malekith, the Dark Elf leader, snapped his head around. He forgot Felicia and fixated on Jane Foster. He gazed at Jane, mesmerized, muttering, "The ether, you came back to me. You're mine." But as he focused, he sensed something was wrong. The ether's energy felt sluggish. That wasn't what they wanted. They needed the ether active, a fluid reality stone, so they could wield its power and plunge the 9 realms into darkness. Malekith's eyes darted to Sumu's hand, still touching hers. That's where the ether was getting lazy, even solidifying. He glared at Sumu, face contorted with rage. "Human, whatever you've done, undo it." When Sumu ignored him, Malekith snarled, "Kill him. Crush every bone in his body, then bring me the woman." "Yes." One of the 5 cursed warriors grabbed Thor's legs, yanked him down, and began pounding his face until he was unconscious. The other 4 lunged at Sumu, eyes burning, armor glowing with heat. The Dark Elves scoffed at Sumu. Odin was the only one they feared in Asgard, but he was old, slow, and busy elsewhere. They smelled victory. Malekith sneered. This pathetic human, even with his little trick, was nothing. Only the Sorcerer Supreme of Kamartaj gave him pause. Everyone else was just an ant. Frigga, seeing the danger, yelled to Sumu, "Run! Tell Odin. Get him to save us." Too late. The closest cursed warrior reached for Sumu's throat, ready to subdue him and crush his bones. Boom, a sonic boom cracked. A blur vanished, smashing through the magically reinforced wall and disappearing out of sight. Everyone froze, mouths agape, staring at the seemingly harmless earthling. Black and red lightning crackled from his feet, leaving deep gouges in the floor. After kicking one cursed warrior aside, Sumu ignored the other 3 and stalked towards Malekith. "You want to crush my bones? That's a pretty boring way to torture someone. I've got something much better in mind. Wanna try it?" It was a question, but it felt like a command. No, more like a judgment, a condescending judgment. This human was treating the Dark Elves like dirt. Malekith snapped out of his shock, but though his face was grim, he wasn't afraid. The Earthling was stronger than he thought, stronger even than he believed possible for a human, but that was it. Surrounded by his cursed warriors, there was no way this human could win. "Go!" The cursed warriors swarmed Sumu. Boom! Fists broke the sound barrier, each blow a deafening sonic wave. Since the cursed warriors stopped attacking him, Thor was able to help Felicia, protecting her behind him, and looked at Sumu worriedly. Each cursed warrior was stronger than Thor himself. Surrounded by 4, he wouldn't last a minute. Even if Sumu was stronger, Thor didn't see how he could possibly win. His only hope was that Sumu could hold out until his father arrived. That was their only chance. But Thor was just a hammer-swinging god. He didn't understand the difference between Sumu and the warriors. Sumu could withstand Mjolnir, and so could the cursed warriors. So he thought that even if Sumu was a little stronger than a single cursed warrior, he would not be the opponents of the several warriors. The truth was, they weren't even in the same ballpark. The cursed warriors couldn't get within 5 meters of Sumu. They kept attacking, but never got close. Then, Sumu vanished, appearing in front of one of the cursed warriors. He reached out and touched his forehead. Vector manipulation and repulsion combined, and the cursed warrior's head exploded like a watermelon. Chapter 80, Crush the Black Hole with One Hand. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The sudden shift threw the cursed warriors completely off their game. How could this Midgardian wipe out their comrades with just a flick of his finger? They hesitated, but Sumu didn't. He strode towards another cursed warrior and casually pinched his cheek. Instantly, black and red lightning crackled between them, and the warrior's head exploded. Another one down. The remaining 2 warriors snapped to attention, finally realizing this wasn't some pushover human, but a freaking monster. Could they even win? No way in hell, one-shotting a cursed warrior like that. They were outmatched, plain and simple. With that kind of overwhelming power, they wondered if even Odin could pull that off. Trusting their combat instincts, they went for the only play they had. One grabbed Malekith and bolted, smashing through the wall towards a distant spaceship. The other, as a last resort, chucked a black hole grenade at Sumu. These grenades were dark elf tech at its most extreme, packing insane destructive power. Upon detonation, they created a temporary black hole, sucking in and crushing anything within its reach. They were so powerful, even a cursed warrior who could easily mop the floor with Thor wouldn't stand a chance. Aside from the ether, these grenades were the Dark Elves' deadliest weapon. The warrior hoped that even if it didn't kill the Midgardian, it would leave him crippled. The problem was, how to detonate it close enough. He decided to go all in, gritting his teeth and charging straight at the terrifying Midgardian. He just had to hope that whatever space distortion trick he'd pulled earlier had a cooldown, otherwise even a 5-meter blast radius would barely scratch him. As he closed within 5 meters, the cursed warrior was on edge. It all came down to this. Then he broke through, bursting inside the zone that had seemed impenetrable moments before. The cursed warrior went wild. That nearly invincible shield couldn't last forever, it turned out. He lunged, detonating the grenade point blank. The distortion tore his arm to shreds, but fear was the last thing on his mind. He was ecstatic, ready for the enemy to die alongside him. Sacrificing himself to clear the path for the Dark Elves' conquest of the 9 realms. It was an honor. Seeing the pure, crazed joy on the warrior's face, Sumu would have sworn he'd been touched by some chaos god if he didn't know better. He shifted his focus to the black hole that was rapidly expanding before him. His LV-46 eyes gave him reaction speeds that were off the charts. He could warp his perception of time on a whim. Normally, time flowed just like normal, but when danger flared, the world around him would slow to a crawl. His reflexes were so sharp, everything felt frozen. It was a speedster's power, plain and simple, and after upgrading his 6 eyes, Sumu had it too. That's how he'd taken down Quicksilver so easily. The black hole kept growing, devouring the warrior's arm, the gravity threatening to spill outwards. If it was just him, he could tank a black hole 10 times that size. His repulsive force would just negate the gravity, but he had Thor and the others to think about, especially Jane, who was currently housing the ether. They wouldn't survive this. Not only did he have a reward riding on keeping them safe, but Jane's death could send the ether haywire. That was a problem. That's why Sumu had dropped the limitless barrier to let the warrior get close. He reached out, channeling both vector manipulation and energy absorption into the growing black hole. Level 1 vector manipulation couldn't fully counteract the energy of the black hole, but it made it easier for energy absorption to do its job. Energy point +1, dot, energy point +1, dot, energy point +1, the black hole visibly shrank. It all happened in a blink. One moment, Sumu reached out, the next, the black hole was being compressed into nothing. His palm crackled with black and red energy as it fought the black hole, shattering the ground around him. Finally, under the unbelieving eyes of the cursed warrior, and the stunned gazes of Thor and the others, Sumu crushed the black hole out of existence as if it were nothing at all. You. The cursed warrior was beyond words, completely blown away. Not only had the grenade failed, but the Midgardian had casually snuffed it out with one hand. It defied everything he knew. His 6 eyes picked up Malekith making a beeline for the Dark Elf ship. If he didn't move fast, they'd escape. Sumu flashed a bright smile at the remaining warrior, and a black and red singularity formed in a heartbeat, obliterating him. The singularity blasted forward, slamming into the warrior Sumu had initially punted through the wall, finishing him off just as easily. With both cursed warriors dealt with, Sumu stepped towards the edge of Asgard. The massive Dark Elf warship was disappearing into the sky. He grinned and sealed Jane's mouth, who was yelling because she was floating in the air, then prepared his hand seals. Imaginary technique, Violet. An azure hole and a black and red singularity spawned, merging into a swirling mass of purple lightning. He shaped it into a sword, hundreds of meters long. With a single swing, the sword sliced through the Dark Elf warship like butter, cleaving it in two. The swing also took the heads of the 2 promoted cursed warriors. But Malekith, being short, remained unharmed. He could only watch as Sumu approached, a gentle smile spreading across his face. Let me show you what real torture looks like, to be continued.